Evening. I'd like to call to order the Hingham School Committee meeting of August 14th, 2017 at 7:04 p.m. And before we begin our agenda, I'd like to take a moment. Sadly, the Hingham community lost one of its brightest young citizens this past week in a tragic accident. We'd all like to offer our deepest condolences to his family and his friends, and I ask that you all join us in a moment of silence as we honor Hingham High School class of 2016 graduate Sam Gates and think of his family at this very difficult time. Thank you. And as we go on, approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on July 17th, 2017.
Do I have a second? Okay.
I have one comment, or update that was sent along to me. Where is it? On item 6.1, under new business, not the 6.1 that was taken out of order. The titles of State Senator James Murphy and State Representative Joan Moschino were flip-flopped, so we need to just change that.
And it should be State Representative Joan Moschino and State Senator Patrick O'Connor.
Oh,
James Murphy wasn't able to join us that night.
Right. All right, thank you. And also, that was the only one on that one, correct?
And then
and then in the
6.3.
6.3.
My name is abbreviated.
The name was, right, Eliza's name was just abbreviated as initials, and I missed that. So just make that her full name. And then I think that should be fine, unless anyone else has any other changes?
Okay. So with that, with those amendments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session of the school committee also held on July 17th, 2017.
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. And lastly, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on July 31st, 2017.
Okay.
And I have one more thing as well. We realized after the fact that the agenda for that meeting, in item number 4, mistakenly said 2015-16, and it should say school committee planning. So we're just going to add a note in there, if it's okay, that says it was noted that it should have been 2016-17, not 2015-16.
That was my error when I was reading the minutes. I realized I did the agenda wrong, and didn't catch that. So, but that was the focus of our conversation. So, with those updates, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Item 3, questions and comments. Audience comments are always welcome as agenda items are discussed. Does anyone from the audience have anything to add to our agenda tonight? No? Okay, we will move on. And superintendent's report.
I have the most recent enrollment projection. It's based upon numbers that were submitted last Thursday and Friday. And a lot of change. This has been an unusual summer in that there are some particular grades where there's a tremendous amount of change in one grade and nothing in all of the others in the building. So I'll point that out as we go along. But at the elementary level, down at the right-hand corner, I think you have a paper copy of this at your place as well, but in the right-hand corner, there are 1,905 students in all. 1,895 in regular education classrooms and 10 in what we call the sub-separate programs that are at E-School for grades K through 2 and at South School for grades 3 through 5. Those students are assigned to a grade level, obviously appropriate for their age, but they spend most of their day certainly in core subject work in the sub-separate classroom rather than the regular ed classroom. So we wanted the numbers that represent the average class sizes to be more accurate as to what they really are when the majority of the kids are there. So 1,905 students. Last May, we had 1,946. So this is a decline of 41 students, but that's a smaller decline than we've had in the last couple of years. Nevertheless, a decline. We have 92 regular education classrooms at grades K to 5, and we're projecting at this point 62 students in the pre-K for the start. Last year we ended up with, I think, 83 students in all in the pre-K because, as you know, those students come in as they turn 3, and that number will grow over the course of the year. And of the 62 that will enter school in September, 27 of them are students with an IEP, and the others are typical students whose parents pay a tuition. I would point out some interesting things here. If you look at the kindergartens, we have one additional kindergarten here, so we have 15 kindergartens this year, as we projected would happen. 292 students in all, and last year we had 280 when we finished the year in kindergarten, so a slightly bigger kindergarten as we have projected that would be. And the class sizes are all over the place, as you might expect. We do have everyone that we anticipated would complete registration having done exactly that, so that's been a good thing, and we work very hard at trying to get that all accomplished. Certainly a concern exists at this point about the 87 students in the kindergarten at South, and I can tell you that perhaps that total of 292 might be a little bit misleading, because that 87 is 87 because we have 10 students repeating kindergarten in that one building. We have never had, in my knowledge, 10 students repeating across the whole district. But yet, as we look at each one of those children, the 10, there certainly is appropriate reason for them to repeat. There's some children with some unique needs there. There are only 1 or 2 kindergarten repeaters in the other, but it isn't so much a growth in 5-year-olds in the South School District. It is very much 10 students who are repeating. And of course that makes the grade 1 classes smaller. These are children who would have moved on to grade 1, but are not because of needing to be in kindergarten. And some of them have some fairly serious needs, but the good news is they can be in the regular kindergarten class. Some of them will have para support, but that's the reason those class sizes are a bit bigger. The others are certainly all manageable. The numbers that are in the parenthesis at E-School in grade 1 and, grade kindergarten and grade 1, and at South School down at the bottom, students who were in the 5th grade, the numbers in parenthesis are the students who in that grade level cohort are children who are in the sub-separate program. So you can see there are a total of 6 of them in E-School, 1 in kindergarten and 5 in grade 2, and at South School in grade 5 there are 4 students. All of them happen to be in grade 5 in that particular grade level. So the 5th grade class sizes are all over the place again, and one place to look in particular is to look at Foster School in grade 4. As you will remember, last year several times parents from that particular grade, and the teacher as well, came to express their concern about class sizes that were 24, and by the end of the year all of them were 25 and one grade 26. So we went from a situation where we had 76 children in grade 4 in that class. They've now moved to 5th grade, and 7 of them moved away. So these are some of the unknowns that make it difficult to project. And I would remind you, too, that these are projections and not predictions. They're just because they're numbers that are simply based upon moving students along and kind of some of the natural movement that kids go off to private school in grade 8 and sometimes now in grade 7. And those kind of normal things that we expect that allow us to project, but really are predictions in the form of a formal enrollment study.
Dot, how's the kindergarten to grade 1 jump?
The kindergarten to grade 1 jump. So there were 280 students in kindergarten. You can see that in the right-hand corner, the 280. And now in grade 2, which would be in grade 1, there are 294 in the grade 1 for this year.
So based on, but
So
compared to
that's
past
a
years?
fairly small
Okay.
growth,
Good.
which we thought might happen over
Yeah.
time. So
Okay.
it was suggests that that is in fact
Yeah.
happening. And then if we look at the secondary, we have to look at that in a little bit different way because we don't measure actual classes, but really grade level cohorts. So the projection is the leftmost column in each of the 2 charts. So the top one for middle school, 351 students for grade 6. That's slightly less, I think about 12 less than the current year, which is good news. 361 in grade 7, 368. Total enrollment 1080. Now those other 2 columns allow us to look at growth or decline. So if you look at the rightmost column, you have the numbers that were last year's, the 16-17 counts for each of the grades. So for example, there were 363 students in last year's 6th grade, and there are 351 this year, anticipated for this year. So that's the 12 that I mentioned. There's 372 students in grade 7, last year's grade 7, and there are 361. So grade 7 went down a bit. Remember that we now lose students to private school if they go into some of the local parochial schools in grade 7, as well as going from 8 to 9. And then 360 students in grade 8, last year's grade 8, this year we have 368. And so overall, last year we had 1095, and that was the count in May of last year, and we have 1080 this year, so there's a decline of 15 students there. And the same kind of chart is below for the high school, so projecting 328, 9th grade, 317, 284, and 329 plus 4 students in the sub-separate post 18 class for a total of 1262. Way over in the right-hand corner, last year's high school ended the year with 1218, and so that's an increase of 44 students that we are expecting. And I always remind you that at the middle and the high school especially, these are much softer numbers than at the elementary. The elementary, the numbers who show up on the day after Labor Day pretty much will be what we're projecting. But at high school, middle school, we don't always know of their comings and goings until school actually starts in a few days after that. So if you then look at the very bottom and look at the total sum rate, we're projecting at this point a total of 4247, and that is K. That doesn't include pre-K or vocational students or students who are out of district, special education. So 4247, and that's down 41 at the elementary, down 15 at the middle, and up 44 at the high school. So overall changes are, we're up 29 at the secondary and down 41 at the elementary. So that's a total of 12 fewer students than we had in May 2017. So that's not a big change. Does that suggest that maybe the decline, kind of big decline we've had in elementary is going to write itself. I don't know, it's hard to know because that number of 292 in the kindergarten is so misleading because of those repeating students. So,
It seems like a pretty high, just a pretty high number of kids that are left 8th grade and are coming into 9th grade. I mean, 32 kids projected less coming into 9th grade than graduated 8th grade. And I think I remember that number being more like 20 in our projected average over the years.
well, on paper, what we did in the last several years, ever since parochial schools started accepting students at grade 7, we were always looking at a number of 25, 32 or so that would go out totally, and we always felt that the total number wouldn't change, but they'd be divided between 7th grade kids leaving and 8th to 9th grade kids leaving, which shows up in the 9th grade number. So the split may not be 50-50. It looks as if you look at entering 7th grade, that's a smaller number. When we do the projection at the time of the budget, we have been saying 20 and 20.
Got it. Okay.
And
That's
so
what I'm getting,
this
20.
now looks like 11 and, what is it? 18, 28, 10, small. But we do get some kids in 9th grade as well. We get kids from Derby, we get kids from St. Paul's, so it's hard to know.
I was going to say the same thing, because it does seem like a big drop than usually, just sort of anecdotally, that we seem to go from 360 leaving, I mean, it's like a 10% decrease from 8th grade coming in to the high school. But, I mean, it's good news.
Okay. So, we have 2 new administrators, and Rick would like to introduce them since they've both been rebased in his building. So Rick, and if you'd come to the mic, and then if Colin or Jim want to say something, they can come to the mic as well.
Great. Thanks, Dot. Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hard to believe it's only been a couple of months since I was introduced to you as the new principal, and now I'm doing the introductions myself. And we've been very busy during the first couple of months, and the first order of business for me really as the new principal of Hingham High School was to replace myself as assistant principal and to find somebody new after 10 years of me sitting in that office, to find somebody new to come on in. And happy to say that we had a really rigorous and robust selection process, close to 80 applicants and a really outstanding applicant pool. I would sincerely say it was an exceptional pool of applicants from across eastern Massachusetts. A lot of really talented and skilled people who wanted to come in and have the opportunity to join our leadership team at Hingham High School. And the person who emerged from that process will introduce you tonight. His name is Colin Shattuck. And Colin is originally from the mid-coast of Maine. He moved to Massachusetts for college. He attended Wheaton College, where he graduated in 2004. He was a theater and literature major at Wheaton, also played basketball, was a captain of their basketball team. Since that time, since his graduation in 2004, he has taught in a variety of contexts, both internationally in his first year out of college, and then as a special education teacher at the Brandon Residential Center in Natick, and then since 2011 as a special education teacher at Wellesley High School. And while doing all that, he also has earned his master's from Framingham State. He has a certificate of advanced graduate studies from the Education Cooperative in Boston, and has also started a family. He lives in Dedham with his wife, who also happens to be a math teacher, a well-loved math teacher at Marshfield High School, and he's a father to 2 young children, a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. We love him already. He's made a great impression. I know he's been able to meet several of you so far, but I'm delighted tonight to introduce you to Colin Shattuck.
How did you remember all that? That was amazing. Yeah, I'll say. I don't have the words to accurately describe how thrilled and how excited I am to be in this role. Not only as assistant principal, but in a district like Hingham, which I'm learning more and more every day, is a really special place. As Rick said, I worked in Wellesley as a special educator for 7 years. And I loved that work. And it was toward the back half of that time where I knew that school leadership was the direction that I was heading. And I was really fortunate to work with some really great dynamic school leaders while I was there. So after I accepted the position, then came the sad/exciting process of resigning from Wellesley. But in that time, I felt really eager to get as much advice as I could from the school leaders that I had come to admire and follow. And they weren't shy about giving it. I got more advice than I know what to do with. But there was one piece that I thought was really smart and also really pertinent to where I am right now. And it came from my former principal, Dr. Jamie Chisholm. And he told me I gotta get these words right, resist the urge to hit the ground running and focus on hitting the ground listening. And I found that to be really smart advice because I've acquired some great leadership experience at Wellesley, developed some nice soft skills. I've got a good understanding as to the responsibilities I'll have here. But in order for me to do this job as well as I want to, I need to listen. I need to listen to students, to teachers, to parents, to members of the community, so I can gain a better understanding of what Hingham's all about, what it's like to be a student here, a teacher here, a parent of a student here. And when that time comes, when I learn that information, I'll feel great about how I can serve the leadership team at Hingham High School. And I'll listen to Rick, too. I'll listen to him a lot. Yeah. So again, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. We're thrilled to have you.
All right, so after hiring our new assistant principal, we had another big order of business, which was to replace our soon-to-be retired athletic director, Margaret Conity, who will be retiring in October, also leaving big shoes to fill. And as was the case in hiring for new assistant principal, we were delighted to have an even larger and equally robust pool of applicants for the athletic director opening. Close to 90 applications, and a couple of you on our school committee were part of that selection process. A really intense and also, I think, invigorating process to meet a number of really outstanding candidates from a number of other schools. And the one who emerged from that did not have to come very far. Unlike Colin, who comes to us originally from northern New England, our new athletic director is practically from this own neighborhood. He grew up in Hull. And Jim Quattromoni, after growing up in Hull, where he actually attended Hull High School, a school that he has served in one capacity or another for about a decade and a half now, went on to study at UMass Boston and eventually at the University of Phoenix as well, where he earned a bachelor's degree in business management. He used that degree initially to be the general manager of a health club in Braintree. And during that time, he also began to coach basketball at Hull. He's been very successful as a coach. He was a number of years ago Division IV South Coach of the Year. He's been a past president of the Massachusetts Basketball Coaches Association and has really earned a reputation as an outstanding coach. He's been a coach there for 15 years, has run a number of successful camps as well, but eventually decided to leave his work at the health club to become the full-time athletic director at Hull High School more than a decade ago now. And during that time, he has not only earned a reputation as somebody who has served Hull athletics very, very well, but not too much to say that he has helped to save Hull athletics. Some of you remember that a number of years ago, the athletic budget was eliminated entirely, and it took a Herculean effort from the leadership there, particularly from their athletic director, Jim Quattromoni, who helped to raise and has raised many, many tens of thousands, and I should have the number exactly right, but it's a lot of money to keep Hull athletics afloat. He's done a tremendous job and has built a reputation as an incredibly driven and also compassionate and visionary leader at his school. He's our next athletic director from neighboring Hull, Jim Quattromoni.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I'm humbled to have made it through quite a process. And one of the things that I've come to know in dealing with everybody in your school community here through each step of the process is there's just such pride and passion for your school district. I really look forward to weaving myself into that and being part of the team here. My time at Hull was very important to me, but each step of the way, as I've talked to staff and I've talked to administrators here, to see the resources that are available here and what you provide your schools and your athletic department, I'm just really excited to get started. And I think it's a unique opportunity to be able to spend some time with Margaret Conity, who I have a lot of respect for and have known professionally for many years. Looking forward to taking some of her advice, and I think I've just stolen from Mr. Shattuck for the first time. I really like that quote of hitting the ground listening. I think that's going to be an important part. Listening to student athletes, listening to coaches, listening to parents, and listening to the district leadership. So I'm very thankful, and I look forward to working with you all.
Great. Thank you. Welcome.
Margaret and Jim and I met today. We have yet to negotiate a contract or come up with a contract or a salary, so that's a work in progress, but we'll move forward, and we're confident that we will be able to achieve that in the not-too-distant future. Margaret is leaving on the 2nd of October, and so Jim's starting date will be clarified as we move forward with the contract discussions. And I also learned today that Jim is a certified teacher, and while he hasn't used his licensure to do teaching, he does have that additional credential that I was not aware of. Okay, so we have start of school coming up. Actually, 2 weeks from today is the orientation for the new teachers, and I will remind you that the orientation activity is at the middle school again this year. It was there last year in the cafeteria, and we've really done a lot. I say we, our mentor folks, have done a lot to try to add in more elements of training that are very specific and very grassroots, and putting more of them on that first day. So that's good news overall for our candidates, but it is going to be a tight day. We still will do the introductions. We'll take the pictures, and we'll have the bus tour, but the rest of Monday will be spent on activities such as a workshop on X2. You know, some real practical things that haven't been part of our orientation. And of course, the orientation program continues through the first year, and there will be roughly monthly activities that will happen. But the first 2 days have gotten a little more packed than they were. And on the second day, instead of having one workshop in the morning, which is something we've always done for the newest people in the profession, now what we do on Tuesday morning will be required of everybody, and again, much more practical advice for those folks. And the second half of the day on Tuesday will be the typical special education workshop, which we require of all of our teachers, and those activities as well will be at the middle school. We expect that. Which day is the day that you're not able to be there?
Invitation.
Okay, so we'll have greetings on the Monday during the coffee time from the school committee, from the Board of Selectmen, the chair or a representative, and the individual principals will introduce the folks who are new to their building. As of today, well, as of 11 this morning, we counted 17 new teachers, and we have 4 of the administrative jobs, and you've met all of those people at this point. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we were up to 21 teachers, and still the 4 administrators. We had a resignation that we haven't even heard of formally. We only got wind of because the school where the teacher's apparently going has requested a letter of determination. That's a letter that tells us that the teacher is going there, and they want from us evidence that we accepted a fingerprinting credential from that person. So we said, oh, that's interesting, because we haven't heard yet that the person is resigning to go to a different place, but we believe that will be true. So those numbers continue to come in. We still have 3 or 4 people to be hired. We had several part-time positions this year, and the directors like to hire the part-time people toward the end of the process, because many people will accept a full-time job early in the process. Well, will accept a half-time job early in the process, but they really want full-time, and then they'll leave, and we hire twice for the same position. So we have, I think, 3 of those part-time folks. And then we have a maternity leave position for someone who is going to be out from the beginning of school for the first half of the year, so that person will go through our orientation process as well, although likely she will only be here for half the year. So we're excited. We've had to go higher on the scale this year because we have a number of folks that have advanced degrees and have had significant experience in teaching. And so, a couple of them are in rather unique positions, which means the pool has not been a very high pool. So it's been kind of a challenging year to do the hiring, but they're always enthusiastic to be here, excited in some cases for their first job, and some cases just to be here. We've got several people actually coming from another state, which isn't always the case, but a very qualified group of folks. And so at the orientation, we will give you a sheet that's a summary of the people and a little bit about their experience, so you can look forward to that. So that's on the Monday and the Tuesday for the people who are new to Hingham. And then we have the annual convocation, and the annual convocation is going to be on Wednesday, and it will be at the high school. And we're moving around a little bit of the morning activities because we have a special guest speaker. And, you know, I said it was a secret, but we're sending it out in the news tomorrow, so we really should tell you folks first who the guest speaker is. And since Rick was responsible for connecting with this person, you can make the announcement, Rick.
Thank you. It's a treat. Wasn't expecting to have the honor of telling you the good news, which is that on Convocation Day, not that I don't always look forward to Convocation Day very much,
And
but this
listening to
year,
all of us.
more than ever, that's right, more than ever, very excited for Convocation because we will be joined by someone who is not only our neighbor, but also America's greatest living historian. David McCullough will come to address our teachers on our first day of business for the 2017-2018 school year. He, as many of you may know if you've heard him speak before, a tremendously engaging speaker, a tremendous personality, and two-time Pulitzer Prize winner. He is really a big deal and a tremendous honor to have him. So we extended an invitation to him about 6 weeks ago, and he eagerly accepted. And so he'll make the short walk over from his house on August 31st to address all of our teachers. So
August 30th.
Very excited about that.
30th.
Excuse me, August 30th, right? Yeah. So
Thank you.
it should be fun. I hope we'll see you all there. Yeah.
Right. So that is a special treat. He addressed the Hingham Convocation the year that was part of our 3-year renovation of Hingham High School, 32-month renovation. And there was a time when the auditorium needed to be closed. And so the convocation had to be at Plymouth River in the cafetorium. And that year we did have him. So as a result, sadly, those of us who would normally speak are going to shorten our speeches considerably if we speak at all, so we can give full time to this treasured guest. And as Rick said, you know, he's our neighbor now. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, he lives next door to Mark Cullings. Mm-hmm. So he's also a father of children who live in Hingham and of a number of grandchildren, who mostly all of whom have graduated from Hingham High School. So I'm sure it'll be a special treat. So that's it on the on those events. We certainly hope that all of the school committee members can come, and those who are able, make sure that you make yourself known to Liza for the orientation and to me for the convocation, so that we can recognize your attendance and have you stand.
Yeah, I won't be able to attend convocation. I will send brief greetings. I will make them brief. But my daughter, my second daughter, is enrolling in college that day, so I'm dropping her off that morning. So as all of Hingham starts, a graduate begins the next chapter in her life. So I will be with her. But I hope many of you can go to attend convocation. It's a nice event. Okay, so communications.
Okay, so communications, I want to, is that the last? Okay. So I want to share with you a clarification of a comment that I made at the July 17th, was it? School committee meeting, when I was doing the PowerPoint that went with the response to the Walker report. And it is important to clarify things, particularly those things that represent laws and regulations, but also things that might bring concern to parents and others. So at the request of CPAC, I did prepare a statement that clarifies the statement that I said, and if there's any question at all about our compliance with the law, I think this statement makes it clear that we certainly intend to and have comply with the law. So there is a statement. I'm not sure that it's going to show up here, but know that the statement of clarification, the original Walker report, and the response to it and the PowerPoint summary of that response are all on our website. So they are there for people to see. So unfortunately, this is small print. But anyway, here I cite sections of 2 different laws, and the important language is the one in the first paragraph in the middle, and I'll read that statement. And it talks about students having access to special education services and programs and inclusion opportunities into the regular education program, and it says specifically the type of disability that a child has. Every child is given a primary disability. There are children that have multiple disabilities, but for every child there is a primary, disability, and there are 10 categories of those. But this statement says that the type of disability that a child has doesn't define the needs of the eligible child in any way, nor does it in any way limit the services or the programs or the inclusion opportunities that are provided to the student. And the second part of that, because the discussion was about the adjustment counselor role. There was a recommendation in the report that the role of the adjustment counselors be further defined in the original report. And certainly we've done that over the years and have done it in a brochure. We've done it in using a visual model that reflects a 3-tier approach. And so the issue here was the perception of some folks and concern, a legitimate concern, that adjustment counselor services were not eligible. Some students were not eligible for those kinds of services. So I did reaffirm here that decisions about things like counseling and therapy for individual children are not made by me or by Liz or by any individual, but rather they are the topic of discussion at an IEP meeting. So that's where decisions get made about special education services that might be offered by the adjustment counselor. But all children, and that's what's clarified in the paragraph at the very bottom, all children, regardless of their special education role, have access to that full range of the 3 tiers of services that the adjustment counselors provide. And there are some students, both regular education and special education services, who will be accessing most kids in our schools actually are in our regular education classes every day. The majority of our kids are educated here, number one, and number two, being educated here are part of regular education classes, a high level of inclusion. And so all of those students get some services under Tier 1 from the guidance from the adjustment counselors. So certainly those services. There will be some children who will need other levels under Tier 2 of adjustment counselor role. And and then there are a smaller number of students overall who would require more serious services under the adjustment counselor program. And the program and the role of the counselors and the kinds of things they do are all well-defined on the website, it's the Student Services website, and also well-defined by a paper brochure that's out and about. So, so that was the gist of the statement that was written. It has been forwarded to the to CPAC, presented to them last week. I assume they put it on their website. The information is on our website. And the last thing that we were asked to affirm, and we will do, is we all know that as much as we can write statements and put them out there for everyone to see and make a statement periodically about them, people have short memories sometimes, and not everybody interprets something in writing the same way. So that we need to do more, excuse me, more in terms of being sure that the people, particularly those who sit at team meetings, that they know the law and know what is required and do not limit in any way discussion of a disability in terms of what happens at the IEP meeting. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone, every parent who goes into an IEP meeting will come out with the particular program they might have been looking for. It is a team decision, so there's not a guarantee that what everyone wants will necessarily be what the team finds the student eligible for. But it does mean that the topic has to be an open topic of discussion, and that we cannot say that just because a student doesn't have a certain disability, he's not eligible for a service. On the other hand, we also have to make sure that we say that a student who has a particular disability necessarily will get the same program recommended by the team as another student with the same disability. So there's a lot of clarifying of related things here, and some of it is legal, some of it is what we say about our programs, but most importantly, that Liz and I need to make it very clear to everyone at the beginning of the year, and we will do that as Liz discusses her new handbook, the employee handbook that is due out on September 1st. And certainly there's a meeting on the very first day of school after the speaker with her her entire department, and we'll make sure that that word gets out. And please to reinforce both things, excuse me.
Thank you. And I would like to add that at the July 17th meeting, when this topic was part of the follow-up to the Walker report, I, as chair, asked Dr. Gallo to make it a summary report of the full written report, and so that could have been part of the misclarification of that she was doing a more broad summary, and that the further detail is in the written report and is on the website and was shared with everyone as well, so that there were further details in the written report that helped clarify some of the issue. But then we did talk about it at the subcommittee meeting and at the CPAC meeting last week, and that we're continuing to address all of the issues with the CPAC community to make sure that everyone is clear and that we're all working together on achieving what we need to achieve for the students. So it's an issue that is out there, and it's all being worked on. So, and then, did you want to comment on the NEASC?
Oh, yes, thank you. So we had been awaiting the assignment of a chair for the NEASC accreditation visit that's coming up in about a month, and a week or so ago, last week actually, we got a letter from NEASC assigning the chair, and the chair for our team visit will be Gary Mastis, and Gary's the superintendent of Plymouth Public School. He's someone that both Rick and I know. And then the co-chair will be Joyce Edwards. Joyce is assistant superintendent for teaching and learning in Franklin, assistant chair, not co-chair actually. And Rick and I and Jamie all know her. She's from, spent some time in Duxbury, which is where you got to know her, Rick. So that's good news, and actually, Gary was in town today and spent some time with Rick and Jen. Is he gonna be coming back? Rick, do you know?
Well, he offered to come back to address the faculty if we wanted him to.
Mhm.
But we left that sort of up in the air.
Mhm.
That we discussed that with you and just make a decision whether we'd like to have him back. He was very accommodating, very excited about being part of this team. And the 16-member team is almost completely filled at this point. I think they're waiting on 1 or 2 additional teachers.
Mhm.
But it looks like a good and very representative sample, and almost all of them from Massachusetts. Looks like a real solid team, and I guess this could be sort of a save the date too, because you'll all be invited on the Sunday when they first come in. It's the Sunday, last Sunday of September, the 22nd, 24th, right, Sunday the 24th, they'll be arriving. And so it begins with a welcoming reception for them, and we'll have a panel of speakers to present information about the school to them. We'll show an informational video about the school and so forth. And there'll be a section there where this will all be in writing for you too, but we'll have a letter coming to all of you soon. But a chance to meet with the members of that team to answer their questions about your work and about our community. And that will be during that afternoon on Sunday, September 24th.
Right, and we will, before then, get you the self-study part of the report that relates to the school committee role and the relationship between the school committee and the principal in particular. There are standards that are in that area. So you will want to have read that, because typically when you meet with the school committee, when the school committee meets with you, the folks on the team will be asking questions that reflect their reading and the questions they have, having read the report that our school has prepared that is with them now. So as soon as we get the schedule, we can tell you better what time it will be specifically, but usually it's in the middle of the afternoon. It's about 45 minutes to an hour. And it's always a good thing if school committee members can attend, and we don't always have 100% of school committee members on these visits for a variety of reasons that people have, so no one should feel guilty if they can't be there, but if there's a good representation, I think you'll appreciate it. And I don't think any of you have been through that before, so it's always a good thing. I was thinking the other day, so this will be with the 4th 10-year accreditation that I've been at as an administrator, and maybe one before that. And they're always tension-filled periods of time, but everyone tends to come away feeling that it was a worthwhile experience, a good professional development, and gives you a little more appreciation of looking at school through a different set of eyes and what that can bring to us ultimately in terms of the report. So there's one layer of relief is to get the assignment of the chair, and the greatest relief will be when they leave, which is on the Wednesday afternoon. So.
Okay. Other communications. I have 2 other things to share with you. All of us on the school committee received an email regarding questions about the superintendent's succession planning. And I wanted to comment to the public that the school committee has been discussing this process at various times and during various classes of school committee members, during planning and executive sessions, particularly as the issue pertains to employee contract negotiations. And we are looking at the topic in the 5-year long-term vision planning that we're working on. And so more information will be shared when we share the draft of the long-range vision document in the fall. So that's how I wanted to comment on that. And then the other thing I wanted to share with the school committee is that, as you may be aware, at the Board of Selectmen's meeting on August 8th, they announced that our town administrator, Ted Alexiadis, will be retiring at the end of the year. And I was informed to share with you that he will be full-time in the office through the end of September, September 30th, and then his contract ends December 31st, and he'll be available as he's needed. And so as of October 1st, Tom Mayo will be the acting town administrator, and January 1st formally appointed interim town administrator. And Betty Foley is making a return visit to help out 3 days a week through town meeting. Yes, we are very fortunate that she's close by. So that's what I know of that situation as of now. So the Board of Selectmen are going to take a deep breath and take some time on addressing where to go next on that. So, next, unfinished business. 6, to act on proposed changes to School Committee Policy 3.1 as recommended by the Policy Subcommittee. Cynthia, do you want to?
We haven't received any, I didn't receive any input regarding this. This is basically some wording changes to the role of the school committee so that we can put this up on the website and, you know, make sure we get comprehensive information out there to the public about, you know, what we do, and we just all wanted to agree on how that was phrased. I can't find it here. But I haven't received any further changes, so, oh, I got it, thank you. So, I guess I'll make a motion that we accept the proposed changes to Policy 3.1, School Committee Legal Status and Authority, as outlined.
Second it.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great.
Great. And we can pass that on to community outreach.
To act on proposed changes to policy 6.24.
Yes, this was the proposed changes to the policy regarding the issuance of diplomas. We did have a first reading, but in the meantime, you know, I've had some further thoughts. I think some other people have as well, so I'm going to suggest that we postpone this and bring it back to the policy subcommittee and sort of regroup, if that's okay. And since Kay's not here as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we
Kay
gotta-
is on the policy
yeah.
subcommittee, so we didn't want to make a decision without that further review.
So do we officially need to table that, or is it, like,
I was
per
just asking
Robert's rules?
clarification.
Okay, no, I know, but, or is it just that we can postpone the act of? I should have boned up on my Robert's rules.
Well, I guess it's actually our own policies. Well, yeah, we can, because we said it would be a first reading. Our policy is we have a first reading and
Right.
act at a subsequent meeting.
Right.
So.
This was the acting.
This was the acting.
Yeah, right.
So we
okay,
can.
We're not acting, so
Yeah.
let's table that.
That's fine. Okay, 6.3.
I don't know why it's not there.
Oh, you don't have.
Don't know what?
It's just not in the drive.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why it's not in the drive,
Okay.
is what I'm saying.
It was a policy in regards to issuance of diplomas, so we're gonna rethink about that a little bit, so. So 6.3, to act on the proposed schedule of per diem and substitute rates for fiscal year 18 as recommended by John Ferris and the Salary and Negotiations Subcommittee.
So nothing's changed, right, Cynthia, on this, on
No,
John's
nothing has changed.
pay rate summary?
No, nothing has changed, sorry. Is this what?
Nothing has changed
No.
from what you've looked at, right?
This
I
was,
mean,
no, this was
So
We looked
Us
at
and
it.
This
Carlos
is
and
negotiations.
salary
This is,
negotiations,
Oh.
not policy.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm stuck
It's
on
summer.
policy. I know.
generally, some rates are going up about 2% and others have stayed the same.
Yep.
And this is this is a schedule that we do every year. This schedule is proposed to be effective on August 15th. So there's no retroactive treatment to any vote that would take tonight. The rates would just change as of tomorrow. And as I said, some have gone up 2%. Others, and they may be rounded up to the nearest dollar or round cent. And some have not changed at all.
So I'll make a motion to accept the schedule of per diem and substitute rates for fiscal year 2018 as recommended by John and as included in our packets.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
6.4, to establish the date of the fall school committee planning meeting. So we were looking at the weekend of September 9th or 10th. This has become an annual working session on the weekend to begin talking about the upcoming budget cycle. And Carlos, I believe you. The Saturday works?
Yeah, that's
For
fine.
you better? Okay. So, everybody good on the Saturday, and we would do it in the morning?
Usually it's like an 8
8
to
to-
11
yeah.
or so kind
Okay.
of thing.
Great. So, that's done. And just so, also to update everyone, Kate Doyle is putting all the school committee dates onto the Google Calendar. And she created, and the school committee dates are under this, you need an email address to create it, so it's under the school committee one. So on our file, all those dates are on a calendar. So just as we're moving ahead, as we schedule subcommittee dates, if you can send that to Kate, and then she'll update that. And she's going to color code the whole Hingham Public School Google Calendar so that each school gets assigned a color, the school committee gets a color. And that's going to take her till the end of August, she said, but I think it'll make it easier for people to understand once it's all consolidated. As I saw, there were some things that there were dates of 3 different 8:30 school orientation meetings, and you couldn't tell which school was
Yeah,
which.
we-
And so I think that'll be helpful for everyone.
And
so.
we really need to take down the aggregated one for the time being because of that, first
Yeah.
of all, that you can't tell which is which. And also, that what I think we didn't think about was the fact that what goes into the aggregated calendar is what has been put into the individual school calendars. So, for example, at one school, it says age 35 and older softball,
Yeah.
like every night of the week. Well, that isn't the kind of thing that really should be on our calendar. So the step that we have to take is to get the secretaries all together and make sure they're all using the same criteria so that that will meld into the beautiful color-coded result. But of course, as Murphy's Law would have it, Kate is on vacation this week. So, but that's okay,
Yeah.
because it will give us a chance we meet next Monday in the afternoon with the administrative council, which is all the principals, so we can get out that word as to, what we want them to put on those calendars and what belongs somewhere else, in perhaps a whole different calendar. So it'll get worked out in the end, and it's a good project, but when I went on yesterday to check the aggregate calendar with excitement, I
Yeah.
see all of these age 35 softball games that are going on, and a couple of other things that I had no idea were building.
Yeah.
Homework club, I
Yeah,
thought it was
yeah,
odd
that
to
was-
have
yeah.
homework club in August, but
Yeah.
it was on someone's calendar anyway.
So it'll be cleaned up before school starts, which is the best part of it. Okay, new business. We are joined tonight with advisory committee members, Lucy Hancock, who's the chair for this coming season, and Donna Smallwood, who's the vice chair, and Dan Coughlin, who's the recording secretary. And also, Dan is the chair of the Education Subcommittee for the
ACES, we call
ACES,
it.
well, yeah. And Donna is on that again. And there's two additional members, Dave Anderson, and then, who you all know, and George Danis, who's a new member of advisory, who will be joining them this year. But Dan is here tonight to provide an update on the work of the AdCom-sponsored financial planning group. And this group was sort of the beginning of something we had talked with Linda Kutch last year about, of doing the forward-thinking financial planning. And this is the first step in where the advisory committee is coming out on that, even though we are still proceeding with our 5-year lookout, so that we're ready for you when you get to that part of it. But I'm going to put it over to Dan to give us the overview, and you have in your packet, you have a summary of what he's going to talk about. But, so Dan, if you can give us some history and.
You have a one-page summary, and we put this together for a couple of reasons. One is a number of people in town were wondering what this committee was doing, and so we thought it helpful to clarify for any of the various audiences. And as Liza said, this really comes out of some planning that was done last year. The ACES subcommittee was concerned about different tools that we had for projecting both operating expenses and capital expenses. And so the group was formed and adopted, or was instructed by the Board of Selectmen to first consider the capital side of the equation. And so what we're considering is, in broad terms, we all recognize that the town is faced with a number of major capital expenditures over the next few years. Everybody has needs, whether it's the police department, the school department, the water department, everybody has a capital need. And so Ted Alexiadis made the point that we have all these identified needs out here on the left. And on the other hand, we have a lot of debt that's expiring over the next few years. So there might be an opportunity to match the two of those together. And if you can do that, you might be able to do all of the projects or some of the projects. And the question is, which projects get done and how do you do those projects? And what's the impact on the town? Impact on the tax rate, impact on the fund balance, impact on other obligations like OPEB and pension benefits the town has. And so what we're doing is putting together a very simple model that will allow the town to say, this is the amount of debt that's expiring, that's the amount of capacity the town has in terms of borrowing, and if we do X amount of borrowing, this is what will happen to the tax rate, this is what will happen to the fund balance, and this is what will happen to other liabilities that we have. The group is not taking a position on or evaluating any of the various projects. We have no opinion as to whether project A or B ought to get done, nor do we even know exactly what project A is likely to cost. And so this is merely a tool that can be used both by the school department and the town to say, all right, we have the capacity to borrow so much money. Here's a project that is shovel-ready. It would come out of the ground in the next 2 or 3 years. Does the town have the capacity to borrow that money under its current profile of expiring debt, and what would happen to the tax rate? And so we can make an educated decision as a town, and the advisory committee can take this tool and draw an opinion or come to a conclusion, as can the town administrator or the school department or anybody else looking at these various projects. And what we're doing right now, and we have a report that will come back to the advisory committee in the middle of October. It'll be a financial model that will essentially say, if we do nothing, if we just let the debt that is on the books expire, this is what will happen to the tax rate. Now, of course, that's the base case assumption, not the most likely assumption. But we're also going to take all the projects that have been identified and say, if we borrowed all the money at once and did it, what would happen? Now, that's another extreme assumption that's not likely to happen, because you couldn't do all the projects on day one. But it'll at least, shall we say, box the opportunity and allow the town to have some way of looking at these various opportunities and say, how much money can we borrow? What's going to do to our tax structure? The other thing that we're going to do is, we've been talking to the financial consultants the town uses to make sure we understand that we're protecting the town's AAA credit rating. So that's another measure. It's more of a qualitative measure than it is a hard measure, to make sure that we understand. And the early indication is that they look at us and say the town is a strong town for reasons of fiscal and financial management, but also because of the quality of the income stream of the town. The tax base, the quality of the town itself, the socioeconomic effect of the people in this town, that is, in fact, they tell us, a more important aspect of our financial rating than the question of how much debt we have, which came as a bit of a surprise for those of us who look at the world through numbers. So again, just to put it in very succinct terms, we're looking at how much we can borrow, what the projects are likely to cost, and what kind of latitude the town has in terms of borrowing money to get these things done. Now, a lot of wild cards out there. Will the MSBA, support the town in terms of the Foster School? Will the library get grants to be able to do what the library wants to do? What would it cost to do a fire station for North Hingham and South Hingham? Lots of unknowns out there. We're not taking a position or have an opinion about any of those. We're just going to have a model that allows us to say, if you plug this in, what happens? If you take that out, or if you move it out a few years later, what happens? So, happy to answer any questions. I'm rambling on a little bit here, but just to give you some context.
I think you just answered it, but you are building in a timeline, so
Yes.
say if we do this in 3 years,
It's a
that these
15-year
variables
model, looking
change.
at it and saying, it starts assuming in 2019. So if, for instance, to pick a project, Foster School were to come online starting in 2022, and the borrowing were to be X at 3.75 over a 20-year term, you plug that in, how does that look? And what does that mean to other projects that might be coming along simultaneously? And would you defer some or accelerate others? And again, this is all starting in 2019, going out 15 years to 2034.
And the estimated cost of each project is inflated
It's,
as it goes.
Well, it's
Yeah.
to be determined,
Yeah.
I mean, we just took broad numbers based on what we heard and assumed we got no money from anyplace else. And there's round numbers of about $80 million worth of borrowing, opportunities out there, if you will. And over the next 4 years, we have $40 million of debt service that's burning off. So right away, over that time frame, and that doesn't look any further out. But just in broad terms, you look at it and say, we've got some room here, which is what Ted had said all along. So what we're trying to determine is how much room and how quick we can get there. Not to be confused with the financial planning tools that you were talking about, at your last meeting, which is more operating related.
Yeah.
And again, something that ACES is happy to work with you on. Okay.
And how can we sort of like incorporate additional projects into this?
We're going to have a model, and if we decide we want to build a new town hall. I'm not suggesting that for any minute, but whatever the project might be, you can just put that number right in there based on your assessment of the time frame and the amount of money that it would cost. And so it's kind of plug and play, a very simple model.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dan, could you just reinforce the timing of the reporting of this group?
Right.
Just give them an idea of what.
Yeah, we intend to have a report to the advisory committee by the middle of October. This is not heavy lifting in terms of a financial model. We've virtually got it done now. The real work with this
If
is
you say so.
The real work with this is going to be figuring out what the projects are.
Yeah.
How much they cost, what funding you're going to get from where, and then plugging that number in. That's where the heavy lifting comes.
Okay. And is it like a Excel spreadsheet that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. No, simple Excel spreadsheet. The inputs are the amount of borrowing, the timeline for the borrowing, the interest rate, and that's it, really. I mean, you just, how much is the project going to cost, when are you going to start it, and what's the interest rate going to be? We're assuming a 20-year, borrowing on any one of the projects.
So we can, even if we plug in amount and timing, then we can adjust the interest rates depending on
Yep. And
where
adjust
we
the-
think our
Right,
world is
right.
going.
And then what will fall out of that is, if you do that, this is what happens to the town's tax rate. This is the impact, if any, to fund balance, which is probably de minimis in any case, And then this is what it means in terms of dollars that would otherwise have been available for pension liabilities to, overfund or, accelerate the funding on those liabilities, So those seem to be the three big criterion that people are asking about. And,
So there has been discussion about if there's room in this, the 40 million coming off of if it's not used for capital projects, to use that for
well,
pension
the
liabilities,
model-
or am I putting words in your mouth?
No, to some degree, you're putting words in my mouth, but the model will allow you to do that.
Okay.
It's not a suggestion that you do that.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's to allow for that. And frankly, that was one of the big issues at town meeting last year. Somebody was very concerned about where we're funding our obligations there, and where we're borrowing money and spending money in other places that could have been better suited going someplace else.
Yeah.
And I think what is going to fall out of this is it's going to show that, if you were to save money by not doing some of these projects and devote that money towards those liabilities, it doesn't have as much, benefit to those unfunded liabilities as you might think. So it'll at least give us a way to answer the question.
Okay.
So one more question then. So your timeline is, you reporting this to the advisory, is to the advisory by the mid-October?
Middle of
you
October,
said?
right.
What is the timeline in order for us, long range, to come up with, if we have additional projects that we want to present, so you can plug it in?
This tool is not time sensitive. You can use this tool, and again, if you came up with another project 2 years from now and you wanted to put it into the tool, you can do that. But you'll have also at that point have updated it for other projects that have been put in place between now and then. So
But when you're presenting it to the advisory, mid-October, is for the information or for the action?
It's for information only.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, this is Dr. Schreier will appreciate it. This is a project without any teeth. We don't have any authority. There's nothing. We're just providing information and providing a tool.
Thank you.
Yes, Lucy.
Just jump in, there's also the condition of, there is excluded debt and non-excluded debt.
Yeah.
So we have to look at the situation where there's different ways to get more debt. It's not just that we have non-excluded debt that's coming off the books.
Right.
In the Prop 2.5 when the person.
Right, okay. So the model can be used for both types of
It has a
debt.
component for excluded debt and non-excluded debt.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think, Carlos, once the tool is announced and in place, then that opens a whole nother discussion with the rest of the town of what are the projects, and once we start plugging things in, then how do we determine, what happens when, and of what money's available, what does the town decide to spend it on, and like with Foster School, when do we hear from the MSBA? If we do, or if we don't, we can't wait. Are we moving ahead, or are we just gonna wait it out till then? It's a lot of moving parts, and if we can.
I think part of the genesis for this work was a recognition that everybody has projects, everybody has them in their own mind in terms of the timeline and the cost. But anytime somebody advances a decision point and says, let's do A, the next question is going to be, well, what's that do to everything else?
Yeah.
And so at least this provides a broad context, and you can tell this is what it does to everything else. And can we do all these projects? Can we do none of them? Obviously the answer is not probably either of those two extremes, but it helps to give some planning and some context as more opportunities emerge with some of this debt burning off in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we will look forward to mid-October on more information on that. Okay,
Does your committee meet at a regular schedule, or how would?
We have a meeting next week, and we are posting those meetings on the town website. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So 7.2, to receive a report on the Hingham High School GPA transition process as prepared by the Director of School Counseling, Heather Rodriguez.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have the report, so you have a good chance to look at it. It's a report that was done by a committee of parents, and Heather and Cathleen Savery, who is our post-secondary planning center person, now moved to full counselor status, and she will continue with the duties that she had, at least most of them, as the planning director, but also will have a small cohort of students that she will serve as counselor for. But neither of them could be here tonight. Both of them expressed to me that they would really like to be here, to be the first ones to present the report, and certainly people may have comments later. So we are suggesting that we defer the reporting out until at least one, if not both of them, can be here. And certainly we would try for the September meeting to make that happen.
And the report is also now on the counseling, or be on tomorrow?
Check
this
with,
week?
I asked Kate to put it on Friday. I'm not sure
Oh, okay.
that she did, but we'll check.
Okay.
Can we just, Liza, make an
Yeah.
effort to have the presentation on our first meeting?
Yes,
Okay, just because there is a deadline for students to respond.
yes.
Thank
I'm well aware of the urgency for this year's senior class wants to hear and be able to ask questions about it. But unfortunately, their attendance due to the summer schedule couldn't be here. But the report should be available to parents
Mhm.
now, so they can also read it prior to coming to the meeting, which should help a little bit of
And we
possibly
did
answer
send
some
out a
questions.
report, a letter to parents earlier in the summer because dates changed for the Common App to be available, and there's a question in the Common App, and that kids would need to be able to answer, and that letter did already go out to parents, so, and students, so we'll work on that.
And I can tell you of having had a child in the first year of the transition, the guidance staff was very helpful of answering all the little questions with 2 GPAs to report, and so unfortunately, we're still in transition, but.
I don't see it up there yet, but I could be missing.
Okay. So 7.3, to hear an update on activities related to the proposed foster school building project. We have a lot of activities on this, and Dr. Steller, the principal of foster school, is here to, do you want to be prepared to get on the microphone? And so first, we wanted to share Doug Foley and his facilities team has made a lot of progress this summer on getting the building ready to go for students and getting ahead of some challenges from the past couple of years. So, John, do you want to take people through some of those updates?
Sure. I mean, I will be looking primarily at Foster, or, I mean, were we more interested in an update of everything that's
No,
taking place?
we're interested in the particular
Foster.
Foster.
In
Foster
okay. yeah.
email.
Right. Yeah, so with the, with Foster School, back in during the budget process, through working with capital, we actually got about $35,000 in maintenance, for preventative maintenance at Foster. So we've been employing that money, that capital monies over the summertime by taking a look at doing some preventative maintenance with the heating systems. One thing that's been done is there were approximately 130 steam traps that were non-functional, and all of those steam traps have been replaced. So now the steam's flowing a lot more freely. Also, a heating system sort of works on pneumatic controls, and there was a fear that one of the original pieces of equipment, a pneumatic controller, would go down, and we actually had a spare from the middle school. So what we've done is we've taken the spare over to Foster, and we've got that sort of all hooked up so that in the event that we did have a failure, we'd be able to click over the spare pneumatic controller, which basically does all the job of controlling the valves and stuff to open and close the steam traps so that the heat will flow or not flow, and help set temperatures. In addition, we've had contractors in the crawl spaces looking at some of the hangers that were like holding up the pipes, and inspecting those, and where they were found to be sort of beyond repair, or, highly rusted, or maybe possibly likely to going up and shoring those up by putting some new hangers in place. So, a lot of that work has gone down. And then looking at the other makeup gear units and the ventilators within the rooms, changing out all those and looking at the traps and making sure those are running properly as well. So all of this combined, I mean, this was all done through the capital money that was provided. We have a plumber on staff who's actually been able to do a lot of the work, with our people, which is really good. And then, you know, we have outsourced a number of things to IBS, which is our HVAC contractor. You know, plus there's normal maintenance that would take place during the summer on boilers anyhow, okay? So a lot of that work has actually been very, very, you know, productive, we think, okay? And, you know, a lot of it is meant to breathe more life into the building to try to avoid the problems, you know, occurring over the winter time. You know, will it cure 100% of the problems? It's not going to cure 100% of the problems, but it should mitigate, you know, a number of them, many of them, you know. And maybe instead of having, you know, if you know, we cut it down to have 50% of the problems we might have. You know, we're hopeful, and that's exactly what the intent of the capital money is, and next year we'll be asking for more capital money so we can do this similar type preventive maintenance, so we can mitigate the problems that may occur during the winter. You know, some of the stuff, you know, feels very good. Before you walk down in that boiler room, it was always very, very hot. I've actually been down in the middle of the summer, and it's not hot. You know, so we've got the air flowing. You know, a lot of signs are encouraging, and I'd like to say, hey, wow, this is the cure, but you know, the building is aging, so, you know, we will still have problems. So, I mean, I think the staff there has done a great job, and we're making sure the building's ready for the winter time, and when we get the calls during the winter time, we'll just continue to respond. Deb, I don't know if I've missed anything that you think.
Do you have more?
I would like just to, if I could make a few comments.
Yeah.
It has been, it's been a real pleasure to see the quality of the work and the interaction with the contractors and with maintenance and with our staff in terms of getting work completed. And excuse me, all of the items are done that Doug had presented to you. They are doing still doing, and only because I'm there would I know this detail, they are still finishing up on a few of the steam traps.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about it, over 100 steam traps, you know, that they have gone in and really worked on. I guess the other piece that I think is very important is to realize it's a 1951 building, and that we're able to find expertise to work in that pneumatics. Is that what it's?
The pneumatics, yeah.
Some things I really don't want. What is that called again? The pneumatics?
Pneumatics, right.
That's that's almost a lost art. And part of that piece really is how we work at maintaining temperature within the building. And so what we have hopes for and have almost ready, but we'll have ready for the first of school is, if by chance we have a steam pipe that breaks, if that does occur, we now have so much more data and information on how we can reduce that as an impact in terms of for the entire building. Will we have an alternative plan? Absolutely, because it's important. And usually when you have a good plan, you never have to use it. It's when you don't have one. So we'll have a plan in place, but we think that the wear and tear on the entire structure, because of the balance that is being that has been created this summer, will make a big difference for us during the winter. And when MSBA was here visiting and looking at the building, you know, that was one of the things that we really spent some time talking about, is the impact of, if we're able to have a more stable environment relative to temperature, that impacts tremendously our instructional program. And, you know, how we're hopeful that that will be a temporary solution for a long-term problem, because we consistently speak about creating a 21st century and delivering a 21st century instructional program in a 1951 building, because in reality, you know, it's 1951.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point, Deb. I had, you know, Deb was providing a little more detail, so when she's talking about the pneumatics, when those traps get placed out, they're all getting tagged as well. So you know exactly, you know, the tag has a number, and that number will translate to a pneumatic control that actually turns it on, for, you know, turn it on and turn it off. So basically, if we have to isolate sections of the building, it may not be as big sections of the building. You know, we may be able to get it finer into, hey, just a couple of rooms we could isolate, because, you know, we're, in placing them out, everything's getting tagged, so we're learning how the system's, you know, put together as well, so. We'll still have problems, but we're hopeful that, you know, this will mitigate a number of the problems, and there won't be as many next winter.
Well, and when you look at the school relative to 5 sections, I call them sections, I'm sure there's another terminology for that. And sometimes you don't want to know too much, because then you think you know more when you really don't. But we have 5 sections of the building now, and where we can go critically to turn things off in those 5 sections, which should make a big difference if we have any issues relative to heat in the winter, because this really is in preparation for heat in the winter.
Great. And don't go.
Okay.
So then, last week.
Wednesday,
we had-
yeah.
So we have, the MSBA came to do a visit, so
Right.
Debbie alluded to that, so John and Debbie want to
Yeah, we'll take some of
report
that.
on
So
that?
the MSBA came to visit. They had, they were visiting based on, because we filed a statement of interest with the MSBA back in April. I know, I'd love to be able to say here that they just came to look at our building, but they didn't. They're looking at all 83 buildings that they got an SOI for, okay? Because what they're doing is they're going out and they're with a team. They have a couple of consultants, they're technical consultants from STV, and then they had a couple of MSBA people, plus the sort of the director, Diane Sullivan, who, you know, heads up the SOI process. They all were in attendance, and they were there to really do an assessment of the SOI, answer some follow-up, you know, ask some follow-up questions to the content that we put in. And, you know, many may know that, many of you know that when we put the content into the SOI, it was on a portal, and you do yes, no questions for the, yes, no answers for the most part. And then sometimes they'll say, you know, if yes, give us some text, or if no, give us some text. You know, and if you put like the no and they didn't want text, and you put text, when you submitted, the text disappeared. So it was a great opportunity, because, you know, we did throw a lot of text into the yeses wherever it was. We'd sort of elaborate, and we talked about some other areas, you know. So we were able to, you know, answer some additional questions, and they did have a few questions. They wanted to know primarily, how does the building impact the programmatic or the educational program, you know? So Deb did a lot of talking about that. She put together a nice 32-point list or
did.
more. I forget, I don't know how many there were, Deb. But we sat down, we had good discussions. In attendance were the 5 people from the MSBA. Dr. Steller was there as the principal. We had Doug Foley there, Katie Hartman was there, Al Duquette from facilities staff. Also, Ted Alexiadis and Tom Mayo were present.
Yeah.
Because the MSBA wanted to also know about our funding capability. You know, is there an appetite to fund, or could we fund? And Ted did go through the description of the presentation that he'd given to the Board of Selectmen back in January about the debt rolling off, and about how many of these projects could in fact be done, you know, if we just sort of scheduled them out. So they, you know, that was a positive, where they, you know, basically told them about the funding. We also were able to give them a certified copy of the vote that we got, the $750,000 for the feasibility study. So, you know, we talked a bit about the funding, and we talked a lot about the facility, and then we took them on a tour. And I wanted to get them into that crawl space and go down in their belly, but they didn't want to go up there. I said, you sure you don't want to go there? Come on, I'll go up there with you. But we couldn't get them up there. As, you know, because we have done that preventative maintenance, the boiler room was not hot as blazes, you know. And it's always been, I mean, this is the coolest I've ever been down in that boiler room. Many of you, if you've been down there, you know you have to take your jacket off. Doesn't matter what time of year you go there, even if it's in the wintertime. But, you know, it was fairly comfortable, and the air was circulating and flowing and stuff. So I think that they'll get by all the good stuff that they saw, you know, and plus too, they see nice waxed floors,
Yeah.
right? We did take them into the rooms with the no lighting, and that's a, you know, that was a significant thing, and, you know, how that is disruptive to the other students. Walked them around to the rooms where the heating pipes had failed because they were direct buried, and we had to, you know, route around. And, you know, so they're doing an evaluation, and what she said was at the end they're gonna do an evaluation. They may say that this evaluation will come, these 14 are out of time. And then, you know, these have, you know, this much time, these can wait. And they said that their timeline would be November, they should be completed with their study. And that mid-December, so it's sort of like December 13th, I should say, you may get a call from us, and the call will say, hold, meaning don't do anything else. Or the call may be, you know, we can't pick you, you should file an SOI for the next year. So we're expecting that at sometime in mid-December, we're gonna know something about whether we're selected or not. Did I miss anything?
And I think they also talked about, as we walked around the building, I gave them not only a list of points, but I also gave them, and I think, I'm not sure you all have seen it, it's what we provided when they came in the fall, just on our building. And so I gave them a color-coded map that they used as we walked around as well, so they could really see, and on there had totaled the number of classrooms that had no natural light, both classrooms in small instructional spaces, those that had natural light but no windows, and then those that have no windows and no natural light. And so we talked about the numbers, and we actually went through those rooms where you have to walk through in order to go anywhere. To go to the bathroom, you walk through another classroom, and it was an interesting. They added, which I've now added to our list, and I found this to be true when MSBA walked through the building in the fall as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is, they said, now look at these room dividers. That we have temporary room dividers in all of our classrooms when we went from the larger open space to the smaller space, and they said, you know, your staff must really do an outstanding job, because the ability of acoustically between the classrooms, the 4 classrooms, must really interfere. And I said, I want you to know that we've done a wonderful job with that. So I added that to my list, that it's a good idea to add, that even though we have done a very nice job with the children, we spent a lot more time in designing our instructional day so that children leave at the same time, so that they're not walking through, and we have really limited distractions and movements, because the same 4 classrooms all go to lunch at the same time, recess and specialists. But that was one piece that I think, because we were so used to it, we hadn't thought about that. So I've added that, because that was something that they brought up. Was a how did we deal with that? And I said, very well. And the same thing in the hallways. You don't have the same acoustical, and I'm not sure exactly what they call the technical piece in that, but you know, you have very little that helps to bounce the sound as children walk in the hallways, but we always walk quietly and respectfully so that children who are learning aren't disturbed by going loudly down the hallways, because that sound impacts those classrooms that are right in the hallway. The other piece, and I've added this so we don't forget, as they were departing, they said, and now, of course, if anything happens to the building, not that I want anything to happen, or any of us do, but if we have any other additional mitigating factors in the physical plant, or anything that comes up that we may have missed in terms of the impact of the 1951 building on our educational programs, to be sure to let them know so that they can add that to our application. And I thought that it was a busy and active time. We talked for a while, and then we walked very quickly, because they really wanted to see what we had placed in writing.
Yeah. So it was a good session. They were there about 2.5 hours.
Mhm.
I mean, they scheduled for 2, but we had good discussion. And, you know, as I said, the fortunate for us is they see, you know, 7 coats of wax on a floor. That looks pretty nice, right? I mean, because the building's coming along and stuff. I mean, of course, you get to the places that aren't, and it's not wax, but, you know, they'll have impressions of, oh, wow, this is a nice looking building, or, you know, and then they'll get impressions of, oh, okay, here's a boiler room, and they'll look at it. So let's hope that they get by all the vision stuff and look at the facts, and, you know,
Well-
you know, prioritize us where we belong, hopefully.
And John, that was why I provided in writing to them the highlights and the points that of the impact on instructional or our educational programs, and also a map, so they would have a visual when they, as they go back and reflect on what they saw, that they would not. Yes, we had 7 wax on a number of the hallways. Not all of them, but the ones that we happened to walk through, you know, they were very shiny, and we reminded them of that numerous times because, and they're very, I was very impressed. They're very knowledgeable. They know to look beyond that, and I was impressed both with Diane and also with the architect. You know, they know what to look for, and with that, I was reassured.
Well, one thing, just want to say one thing,
Yeah.
that, you know what, the beauty of the hard work that, you know, Doug and his team did is reassure the parents that, you know, the school is safe for the
Yes,
kids to come
yes.
back this fall. And I believe that's the, you know, that's the most important thing, so, and the
Absolutely.
rest is beyond, you know, I mean, let's hope that they come back and say, yeah, let's do this or do that in a positive manner, you know? But it is safe and sound.
You know, I think that sometimes we think they're coming next week, and oh gosh, they've just waxed the floor, and maybe that's not a good thing, and they'll think the building is in better condition and so on. But they are very knowledgeable, and I know in both of the prior projects, they certainly conveyed the message that the care that you take of the building is a big factor in terms of their decision-making, because it simply isn't a good investment of taxpayer money to put into a building where there's evidence that it might not be well kept. The other thing I want to comment about with respect to Foster is that the last couple of sentences that were in Doug's memo with all of the work there. So we want to stabilize the plant, and we want to make it safe and more comfortable than it's been because of the differences in temperature and in different areas of the building. But a huge byproduct of all this will be significant fuel savings and secondary water and electricity savings as well. And I also would point out that in the use of older materials from the middle school that can be put in place there as backup. And, you know, sometimes we go over to that depot and look at the stored things and think, oh my goodness, who will ever use this? But they do use some of these. I guess I would comment too that John asked the question earlier to Liza about, well, what do you want to hear about, everything or so? But don't worry, John, because I'm going to tell about the everything. So the letter that comes out tomorrow always has information about our facilities and what's been going on over the summer with respect to all the buildings. And when I sent the message, I was away last week, and so I sent a message to Katie and Doug, and I said, I want you to tell me. And I want you to spend a lot of time on this because you're better doing what you do in the buildings than writing messages to me. But I want 2 things from every building, and only 2. Don't send more because I don't want you spending a lot of time on it. So they sent a whole list of things, and those things will be in the letter that goes out tomorrow. And you will be amazed at what they've done. I mean, I'm just blown away with what that team, and now with Al being added to it as the project coordinator. You know, even more is going to get done, but a lot has gotten done. And where did that money come from? Well, it's a combination. Some of it is actual projects that were individual capital projects, and they were funded that way. Of course, the roof at the high school over the science wing, the high school major project there this summer, that was insurance money, and there's at least one of the projects that's funded by warranty money. So, you know, a lot's going on, and then is increasing not only the safety and the operation of all of our buildings, but also the efficiency. And, you know, just to put a plug out, for many years, we have thought that we really need to have dollars from the capital budget that can fund this kind of work. And typically, there are so many, like, immediate requests and needs from all the departments, ours included, but all the departments, that fairly, you know, they aren't always as responsive to having a pool of money that could do these other things. So we understand that and get that, but I mean, here's a good example with this foster thing of how much really can be done. And we didn't know all of the things that would be needed or that even could be accomplished, but with $35,000, we got a lot of new life into that building, so that's a very good thing.
So Debbie, will you provide your families with sort of a summary of this
Sure.
type of detailed information to assure
Absolutely.
them that a lot of work was done?
Mhm.
And I would also just like to point out that it was for several years that the school committee was asking for the facilities director position, and that we've had Doug Foley on staff for
2 years.
2 years now, and he has transformed how we manage facilities, and with Katie Hartman and the way he restructured the team and looked for new talent when people were being replaced and promoted. We're really fortunate of all the progress that, you know, their talent as a team and being able to do this. It was something that, you know, this team had the vision, and it was something we had wanted to do, and we finally got the position approved, and I think it's really delivering, and the students are benefiting from it, the town is benefiting from it, we're all, and they are,
And it's still getting better.
have such a great
And it's still
positive
getting better.
attitude about everything too, which is wonderful. So-
Katie sent me a note after they sent their little report, so community outreach will appreciate this. So she said, I know I was only supposed to send 2 things, but I wanted to tell you about something that we did, that we piloted last year, and we didn't really talk about it much, but then this year, they contacted at the end of the spring season, when the big community use of the building is winter basketball, and in the spring, dance recitals and things like that. So when that season was over, they contacted all of the regular users of the big spaces in the schools, which tend to be the auditorium, the cafeteria, and the gymnasium. They contacted those people, brought them together as a focus kind of group, and asked what we could do better to serve them better. And she said, well, some of the suggestions were things that just weren't feasible, like it'd be good if the gym were on the first floor instead of the second floor. You know, so that really wasn't what she was trying to get at. But anyway, the one big takeaway was the difficulty, now that we have some of the newer buildings where actual wings get locked off for security and prevention against vandalism and so on, that sometimes when people lease a big space and custodian's there to get it all set up, but then something happens after he's gone off to, you know, clean a room or paint a wall or something. So they now have installed walkie-talkies in the big areas. So at the middle school, in the high school, it would be like at the gym, the cafeteria, and the gym, cafeteria, auditorium, or whatever suffices for that. So that now anybody can get a custodian in the building for those big events. And so things like that, caring not only about getting a job well done for us, but how we're perceived as, you know, kind of, they're thinking and perceptive people, as well as being good at what they do for their main job.
That's great. Proactive. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next thing on Foster, we have a school building committee that on August 8th, the selectmen appointed the final 2 members of the 7-member committee, and they appointed Jennifer Murphy and Linda Hill and I wanted to share with all of you, Linda Hill's talent bank application I put in the packet. She submitted a talent bank application after our last meeting. She did it on her own, and the Board of Selectmen, prior to their meeting, did follow their usual process for all candidates, and they spoke with her, interviewed her as well, prior to considering her for appointment. And so, you know, she wasn't solicited, she applied on her own.
Wasn't there a deadline to apply?
Um,
But there was a deadline to apply, established early on.
There was, well, there was a requested deadline, but it also, there was, you know, then we did the interviews, but they.
I find it disappointing that, you know, you change the rule, but they don't allow us to be the first to select. I'm quite disappointed that they allowed other applicants to submit the application. We should have made that public. So just want to voice that.
Okay, I didn't learn about it until after the fact, so,
So, you know. I don't know what else to say.
Is there not an architect on the committee now? That was a requirement.
so this committee is the Hingham Town Meeting appointed committee.
Yep.
If we are accepted into the MSBA process, and John, you can correct me, the MSBA requests certain people who are on the broader committee, but that don't have to be a town voting member. So these are the 7 members who are casting votes on behalf of the town for decisions.
Okay.
They may accept
So-
engineering or some other, you know, engineering or construction in lieu of an architect, because when you do the project, we will have an architect. I mean, we'll have an
Yeah.
owner's project manager, and we'll also have a designer, you know, and the designer will be really an army of architects. So what the MSBA likes to have is knowledgeable people about the construction trades and, you know, what's really being said so that they can, you know, digest it well. So the, and the other thing too is when we submit, if we get invited into the MSBA, they'll say, okay, give us who your building committee is, you know, who's on your building committee. And they will look at it and then they will approve it. And if they don't approve it, they'll say, you know, you need to get this other function on, you know, some other experience on your committee. Whether they'll do that or not, Michelle, I don't know. You know, they may accept. I mean, we do have construction people. We do have people, you know, with the trades there. You know, we'll have, you know, hopefully, I was thinking that, you know, Doug Foley hopefully will be on that. And he was an engineer and, you know, he's got that trades experience and stuff. So, you know, we'll fill in with sort of non-voting members as well. Whether they accept it or not, that will be their decision at that time.
If you go on the MSBA website, there is a document, lots and lots of documents, but there's one that's called Building with Us. And Building with Us is made up of a series of modules. There might be 12 or 13 modules. And the modules describe every aspect of the process as it goes along. So there is one module about appointing the school building committee. And in that module, there is a template. And the template has all of these categories. And interestingly, it doesn't start with the construction categories. It starts with who is going to be representing the town. Town administrator, assistant town administrator, whatever might be that. Who is representing the school district, you know, in terms of the program, and that would be me. And who is representing the business end of things, and that would be John. And then who is representing you in terms of the construction? Well, that will be to come. So ultimately, when I went back the other day and looked at all of the minutes of the meetings that we've had for the East project and also for the middle school project. And as you look at those, and who's listed in the minutes as attending, so they have the voting members of the committee. So, because there's one category in that template that says list people such as, and that's where they list such as attorneys, such as architects, such as engineers, cost estimators, those kind of people. So they're all listed individually, and then when we submit all of the people that they've asked for specifically, and then the other list of people that have specific talents, we check off which ones are voting members. But when they're listed in the minutes, there were only 3 categories, just about every case. And the 3 categories of people that were at the meeting in the minutes were the voting members of the committee, they're listed first, the school resource people, and the school resource people tended to be me and John and the principal of the building. And then they listed the building project staff, and they were people like the architect, Mary Mahoney, who was the a project manager, and it might be someone at a particular meeting that was talking about the design or the furnishings or that kind of thing. So all of us were ex officio, but we weren't called ex officio members. We were there representing a certain category, and those tended to be the main categories.
Now, and I have to check with the town side a little bit on this, because this is now, it's a town committee, it's not our committee, but, I talked with Cynthia, and Ed brought it to my attention too. We could make the recommendation to pass on the names to the committee that maybe they want to consider inviting 2 of the architects to join their, sit in on their committee as ex officio from the beginning of the process for advice and consent. But will be their decision.
That will be the committee's decision, really, if they need expertise. There've been times in each project when we paid some additional months out of the project expense account for legal services. We had Bob Garrity a couple of times in each one of the projects. So it could be that we need the services of a cost estimator, we being the committee. And so the committee would make those decisions, and those kinds of expenses are allowable if you do have to hire them as opposed to appoint them, and sometimes you might get a volunteer. So. But it does become the committee's decision once the committee and the chair are all in place.
Is that something that people want us to share those names with the committee, and then the talent bank forms? So then on the process of the chair, I did finally speak with Mary Power, the chair of the Board of Selectmen, about the chair process. And I shared with her everyone's desire of knowing who would be interested or being willing to be considered for the position as our committee asked me to. And they took that under advisement. We reached out to various people, and that's what the check marks on your list. Again, as we did the last meeting, I don't want to name names. I gave everyone the committee list and put a check mark. They also informed me that they were focused on identifying a person to be chair who had experience in town affairs as well as the public meeting process. So those were 2 criteria that they were looking at. So when we considered the three attributes, and all of these attributes, these were the three considerations for chair, and that we came up with. And I would like to make a recommendation to all of you that we would appoint Linda Hill as the chair of the committee, and wanted to get your input so I could pass that recommendation on to the town moderator and the Board of Selectmen for their consideration as well. So,
And then how does the vice chair get chosen after that, through the process?
I believe that, I am not clear, that's not spelled out in the warrant article, but I believe the committee themselves would determine.
Chair, vice chair and a secretary.
Are
They have.
appointed within the committee?
They have them.
So what is the purpose of us choosing the name?
For us, well, you all asked for, wanted some input, I wanted to share with you, to pass that on to the town moderator and the Board of Selectmen, because it's a joint decision between the three.
But we are not sure whether they will accept our suggestion.
I think they would, based on the criteria and based on our previous, my conversations with them, I think they would.
So far, they haven't respected the process. So how we are going to establish that they will honor our choice? You know what I mean? I think that has to be established beforehand. I would say that, table, and then you meet with the moderator and the school, and them to say, would you honor our choice? Because after all, yes, the project that we're looking to build, it is a town-wide building, but it is a school building.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like, should have higher consideration. And I don't think it has happened.
That's just not the way it's set up.
I know, but it's not set up, but the process itself has not worked at all. Because obviously you accept an application later on in the game, which is not fair. So I'm reluctant to name a name, because in fairness, I'll put personalities aside, but I would submit that, Ray Estes is duly qualified, and he has actually served as a chair of the school building committee before. And is, based on all the report that he presented to us in the past, in terms of, even participating in the audit process, which is very complex, he has experience. So I would, vote that, that Ray Estes would be our name, putting personalities aside.
Did Linda ever, was she ever involved? She was on the school committee for 12 years, so.
Yeah, and she served as chair of the school committee.
Yeah, I'm not saying, I can appreciate seeing the name of Jennifer and Linda here, because obviously, as you all know, I made public that I would like to see some female as part of this committee.
Mhm.
And I'm glad to see two names here.
Mhm.
But I personally don't know Linda.
Mhm.
That's all. Let's leave it at that.
Might I suggest,
Yeah, I was trying not to name names, but that's.
no,
a-
might I
that's a-
suggest that you do a straw vote and see which, of course, Kay's not here, so I'm not sure how
Mhm.
that'll factor into it. But how, and the members of the sitting school committee, how individuals would vote for a chair.
Yeah, we can do that.
For a recommendation.
But are we gonna do
A
it?
recommendation.
Are we going to do it by name, or are we gonna do it by line?
Yeah, can we,
I think it's too late.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not too late to do it vote-wise.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm new to this, so a couple questions / comments.
I still don't understand why we didn't all together pick this committee. Like why the moderator picks 2, the school committee picks 3, and the Board of Selectmen? Like, why it doesn't all happen together? Why don't the people, you know, the two people that we picked for the school committee to be on the selection committee, like, why didn't it all happen at once? Why didn't, like, I'm just saying, these people, I haven't met them, I haven't spoken to them, I've seen a couple resumes, I wouldn't be comfortable putting a name forward as a chair, because I don't know any of these people well enough to know what their qualifications are, other than I know two of them have served as chairpeople of the school committee, but that's all I know about them.
Okay.
The problem is, you know, we have to pick somebody. So, I mean, I respect what you're saying, but even with the limited knowledge you have, you still have to consider the fact that we have to pick somebody, so. We can't not pick.
Well, so I can understand that now so at our last meeting, I was getting mixed messages of either just Liza and Eileen as chair, vice chair, you make the decision, or bring information back to the full committee. We never really, or at our July 31st meeting, we never really got closure on that. So I went ahead but it was confirmed from the committee that I would go back and speak with the chair and the town moderator, the chair of the selectmen and the town moderator, and have a conversation about what things we were looking for, and then I needed their input too, because they had their own opinions of who they were looking for. And so then when we did have, we were conversing about that, these were the three names that came up that met those criteria. And then based on also the comments from our previous meeting, which I had shared with them about our discussion of the candidates, then that was how there was the focus on Linda as the chair came through. So that, Carlos, that was input from Mary, and Mike Puzo was aware of that conversation. So so in essence, I was following through on some of the directive I thought I had of me focusing on it. So, but I can understand, Carlos, your frustration of the.
Well, I don't disagree with
Well,
Carlos,
except the
because
name.
for all we know, there are other people that if they'd known it wasn't too late. I do agree with what you're saying there.
I mean, the argument that we made that we had way too many architects, and now it's sad to see that we have none, zero.
Yeah. So, but also, Michelle, as far as the town process of appointing committees, when it's the moderator and the selectmen that have joint appointments, the tradition is they independently appoint the people. They don't collaborate together to mutually discuss the candidates. They independently pick people.
Okay.
So that was the process followed here as well.
But that's tradition, though. It's not a requirement. That's what I was just wondering. That's just the way it's typically done. But someday we could turn things on its head and totally change it up and make it collaborative if we wanted to.
We could have, I guess I tried, but that,
All right. No, that's what I just
everyone
wanted to
kept
clarify.
going with how they've always done it, so.
Okay.
But, I mean, here we are, this is the committee, that's a done deal. And we have 3 possible chairs, and, if the thought is to do a straw vote, I respect you're wanting to abstain, but we can't do nothing.
Again, I would suggest to move forward that we simply vote for
1, 2, or 3
top,
going.
middle, or bottom.
I
And
agree.
however those numbers come out, instruct the chair to pass that information along to the other 2 groups.
Yep.
Okay. So, can I have a motion for?
I'm not sure what I'm making a motion to do. I'm making a motion.
Or I guess we can.
I'm
take
making a
straw-
motion
Or a straw
to.
vote?
Or a straw vote? Let's just do a
I think
straw
we just do a
vote.
straw vote. I
Okay.
don't, that's why I'm at a loss. I
Okay,
can't- I
all
can't
right,
think of
so
what
we'll
my
just
motion
do a
would be.
straw vote. Okay, top?
We're voting now. So,
Who's it?
we're
On
voting
your
for the
list.
top name.
Top, okay, sorry.
Okay, middle? Bottom? Okay. Well, I will take the tally of the straw vote back to the other two,
Jaclyn.
and we'll see what we come up with.
Can I say something? Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't really not care, I care, but it just seems like funny. I mean, this is a public meeting, and I think that, I understand what you were saying before the meeting, but it's a public vote, and it really should be the names, because it's just your choice. Like in many meetings, an individual, committee will make a choice of something, and then they'll say, well, we'll talk about it with the others. So I really think I'm just saying this as a report, I just think it should be a public thing who they are, because it's not like it's gonna be the final decision, but this is like what you recommend, and I think it should be public. Because it isn't done in executive session, I really think it should be public.
Okay.
That's fair.
All right, so the 3 vote was for Linda Hill, the 2 vote was for Ray Estes, and the 1 vote was for Tim O'Neill.
Debbie has a question.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we included that I look forward to offering 24/7, any day of the week. We can go out in the dark with flashlights for any of the building committee members who'd like to see Foster. Come and get a sense of, where we are and where we're going. So if you could just pass that on to the selectmen and also to our moderator, that
Okay.
I look forward to that. It's very exciting. This is going to be wonderful for our community, and however they might like to come and get a sense of what we're like, be happy to do so.
Great, thank you. And we will also, in the meantime, we'll make that offer to all the 7 committee members if they would like a tour, and we have a large package of information, of background information for them to get started on reading. And the Board of Selectmen are also, for the first time, hosting a committee training on how to serve on a committee. And so all 7 of these people, Ed, you'll get that, are being invited to that as well.
Is it generic committee training or this committee?
It's generic, it's for all committee appointments.
Open meeting law, that kind of thing,
Got it,
process.
And they have some other speakers coming, it's not just open meeting law. Okay, so anything else on Foster? 7.4, to receive notification of the late-night field trip to New York City on October 17th of the high school botany and art classes. This is a new field trip.
First time trip.
For the botany class and art class for an all-day trip to New York, to the Botanical Gardens, the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Oh, to see the Dale Chialelli glass
Yeah.
sculptures, those are amazing.
And then 7.5, to consider the homeschool application of Patricia and Elizabeth Breen.
And this is a repeat.
And we have to take a vote on this?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, I would recommend it.
So I will make a motion that we accept the application filed by Breen to continue the home education of her children.
For the year.
for the
2017.
2017-18 school year.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Dr. Gallo, when I read this, I didn't, as in the past, I've seen contents of the plan included, but I didn't see them on this application. That's on file?
It should have been included, a basic. You know, often they'll give a packet this thick, and we try to pick a summary, so, I'll check on why it wasn't included. I think it was an oversight.
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
But
it's just, you're
you've
right,
seen it,
it's just the
this has your
form.
approval.
Yes,
Fine, got it.
I saw a packet, is what I'm saying. I don't know why it wasn't included.
Well, there was-
I did too.
But we try to, you know, give a summary and not every single thing that they would have. But something should have been included.
It's just the.
It's just the application.
Application form, the
Not-
cover form.
Yeah, no supporting documentation at all.
There always has been.
Yes, it has.
Except on an
That's why I'm
instance
saying.
last year where there was, a delay.
Yep.
Okay.
So we
Typo.
certainly can delay your vote
You
on
wanna
this.
delay the
No,
vote
no,
till
it's-
then?
How long they've been being homeschooled for a while.
I would say this might be the third or fourth year. There were two Breen families. This is not the teacher one.
Yeah. Do you feel
I'm
comfortable going there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing the forms in the past, so. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right. Then 7.6, to receive notification of the appointment of new teachers effective August 28th. We've grouped them by school. And then there are
There are a
more
number of others. There are
hires.
3 or 4 others that I have met with that haven't yet completed the processing. And then there are some other openings that haven't been filled yet, including the one resignation that we just heard about today. So while there are only 3 schools there listed, ultimately there are new people in every building. And most of these relate to either a resignation or a long-term leave, a 1-year, full school year leave.
And then 7.7, to receive notification of advancements on the salary scale effective September 1st. So we have quite
And this
a
is only
few.
a partial list. You got a small list earlier, because sometimes people already know in the spring they're going to move forward. And then there are these that have been processed. And there will be others where the courses are still in process. And I think the date is September 15th that the paperwork has to be to us. So there'll continue to be a number of these coming.
And then 7.8, to receive notification of the appointments of Colin McGinnis as elementary technology specialist and Caitlin Joyle as assistant to food services director. Those are non-teaching positions, correct?
Yes, although the Colin one, we want to point out, this is the person who was a budget request, will be a shared technology person. He's actually a Hingham High School graduate, one of our techie kids,
Nice.
college graduate as well, and he will be shared by the 4 elementary schools, and we're pretty excited about that. We have invited him, even though he isn't a teacher, and this is an hourly rate per diem kind of job. Well, he has a contract, but it is an hourly rate job. We have invited him to come to the first day of orientation, just so he can get to know the other new people in the building. And Caitlin, that does not impact the budget. It's the assistant to Kim Smith. We had a person there for like 3 weeks, and she moved on to a job that was really exciting to her, and it's been empty for most of the summer, so this young woman just started, I think, this week, right, today.
No, I think it was August 1st.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
she's
when
been
it was
here.
effective, but I haven't
Right.
seen her since.
Oh, yeah, no, she's been here.
I see,
Yeah.
okay. But anyway, it comes out of food service budget, doesn't impact the budget.
And then 7.9, to receive the notification of the full year leave of absence of Kate Tortola, English teacher at the high school.
Oops.
And
What happened
then
here? Oh, yeah.
7.10, to receive notification of some resignations.
Those are all resignations, and doesn't include the new one today.
It does not include.
Does not
okay.
include the new person today.
And then 8 other items, 48 hours. Do we have anything?
I don't have anything.
Then 9, subcommittee and project reports. Salary negotiations.
We are still working through our negotiations with the HEA Unit A. We have a bargaining session scheduled next week. And tomorrow we are meeting with food services and custodians. Next
Right.
week is the teachers' union.
Okay. Cynthia? Policy?
No meeting scheduled yet. We wanted to wait till things got going again.
Okay. Ed, long-range planning?
No, we haven't, yes, we,
Fire
Is there a walk?
there'll be a fire station walk-around on Thursday, the 17th, at 8:30 in the morning at the bus depot, building 132. 8:30, Thursday, 17th.
Okay. And are all of you going, or?
Yes.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay, good,
John's gonna post it.
good.
We're all
Eileen's
last
got
one,
it
too.
sent down.
What?
It's sent.
Oh.
And then community outreach, Kay's not here, but did you guys
Yeah.
have anything? from the
Well, we're
last
working on the feedback. I
Right.
was thinking we're actually
Right.
we're gonna change the name. We were calling it a survey, but it's really like a feedback form that we're
Oh,
gonna
okay.
set up on the
Yeah.
website
Yeah.
for people sort of throughout the year to give feedback to the school committee.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And then special education, we met on August 9th, and the
That's what I was trying to find.
subcommittee is working with CPAC and the administration on the special ed collaborative work plan, which I included in your packet. So you all have a copy of that. And this is a new document initiated by CPAC, for CPAC, the administration, and the school committee to be able to identify topics that our parents want more information on, or there's been a challenge with, and to provide more clarification, but to be able to track the process and identify some target dates for deadlines and who will be managing what part of it. And so the goal is to update it monthly prior to CPAC meetings, or as work is completed, and, or if a new issue arises, so that everyone is just staying on the same page and we're tracking the progress of issues. So I will include that in every school committee packet as there's new information available, so that you are all familiar with what's going on with the initiatives. And then the subcommittee, we also identified our goals for the coming year. And so I will consolidate those. It would be great if we could have those for the September planning meetings from each subcommittee, so that I can consolidate them all together. And we can establish what, as a full school committee, the goals for the year. And we talked about them at the working session on July 31st too.
And
So-
actually, you will meet prior to this because you just voted tonight to meet on the 9th for the planning meeting.
Right. Yes. And that's a working session, that planning meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so that's it? So, unless there's something else? All right. We wish everyone a wonderful first day of school, and we will see you after that, because our next meeting is after that. So good luck with final preparations and
Motion to
waking up that
adjourn.
first morning, so, motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.